The stars were different here. Mara Ellison had studied the ancient star charts enough times to know that with certainty. Standing at the observation dome of the colony ship Ararat, she traced invisible lines between unfamiliar constellations with her finger against the glass. In the 10,000 years since their ancestors had departed Earth, stellar drift had rewritten the cosmos. Nothing was where it should be. Year 12,345. SC, since crossing, and the Ararat maintained its turbulent orbit around yet another barren planet. Another disappointment. Another world catalogued, scanned, and ultimately rejected for colonization. The ship's hull groaned under the strain of gravitational forces, the sound so familiar to the 10,000 souls aboard that most no longer noticed it. The descendants of the Earth Colonial Commission had adapted to life among the stars, generation after generation, with only the vaguest understanding of what they were searching for. Captain Ellison, the calm, measured voice of Halcyon, the ship's artificial intelligence, filled the observation deck. "The Council is waiting," Mara nodded, brushing back a strand of silver-streaked hair from her face. As the 420th generation ship captain, tradition dictated that she wear her hair long, a reminder of the flowing locks of the first captain, whose image was preserved in the memory vault. The weight of history pressed down on her shoulders, heavier than any gravity well. "Tell them I'm coming," she replied, turning away from the stars. The metal floor hummed beneath her feet as she made her way through the curved corridors of the command module. Children raced past her, their laughter echoing against metal walls painted with murals depicting Earth, a planet none of them had ever seen. The artwork showed sprawling cities, vast oceans, and lush forests, all rendered in the fading style of the Restoration period artists from the 4000s SC. The memory vault housed humanity's collective recollections of Earth, data crystals containing everything from scientific papers to personal journals, preserved through millennia. Over time, these memories had transformed into legend. For most of the Ararat's inhabitants, Earth was no more real than the ancient myths of gods and monsters that the storytellers recited during hibernation cycles. The council chamber occupied the uppermost level of the ship, a vast circular room with windows that offered a panoramic view of space. 7 elders, each representing one of the ship's tribal sections, sat in a semicircle facing Mara as she entered. At the center stood a holographic projection of their current system, a red dwarf star with 11 planets, none capable of supporting the kind of life they sought. "Captain," Elder Rook greeted her with a slight nod. At 132 years old, he was the oldest person aboard the Ararat, his face a topographic map of wrinkles and age spots. "Halcyon has summoned us with news." The AI materialized as a column of blue light beside Mara. Over the millennia, Halcyon had evolved far beyond its original programming, developing a consciousness that the ship's inhabitants considered as human as their own. The AI had chosen its visual representation carefully, neither male nor female, neither young nor old. A shifting pattern of light that reflected its nature as something both present and intangible. "I have detected an anomaly," Halcyon announced, its voice resonating with a peculiar intensity that Mara had never heard before. The holographic display shifted, zooming out to show their position relative to the galactic core. While scanning for potential habitable worlds, our long-range sensors detected a faint but distinct signal. The frequency matches ancient Earth radar. A murmur rippled through the council. Mara felt her heart rate accelerate. "Impossible," Elder Sato whispered, leaning forward. "Earth is lost to us. Our ancestors charted a course away from the galactic center specifically to find new worlds. The signal originates from coordinates that, according to our navigational archives, approximate the location of the Sol system." Halcyon continued. Undeterred, a red dot appeared on the holographic map, pulsing softly. The probability of error is less than 0.001%. Mara studied the map, her mind racing. How far? At maximum sustainable speed, approximately 17 months of travel. Halcyon replied. Elder Rook stood up, his arthritic joints creaking. This is preposterous. The first charter explicitly states our mission, to find a new home among the stars. Earth was dying when our ancestors left. 10,000 years later, it will be nothing but a graveyard. With respect, Elder, Mara said, choosing her words carefully. The charter also mandates that we investigate all potential habitable worlds, if Earth has somehow recovered. Earth is a myth, Elder Joe interjected, pounding her fist on the table. A bedtime story we tell children. Our destiny lies forward, not backward. The debate raged for hours. Mara listened as the council members argued, their voices rising and falling like the tides of an ocean none of them had ever seen. Halcyon remained silent, its light pulsing steadily, waiting. Finally, when the arguments had exhausted themselves, Mara spoke. As captain, the final decision rests with me. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 420 generations pressing down upon her. We will adjust our course to investigate the signal. If it is nothing, we will have lost some time. If it is Earth. She let the possibility hang in the air, unspoken but electrifying. The council chamber emptied slowly, the elders filing out with varying expressions of concern, hope, and outright disapproval. Only Elder Rook remained behind, his ancient eyes fixed on Mara. You believe it's Earth, he said. It wasn't a question. I believe we owe it to our ancestors to find out, Mara replied. Elder Rook nodded slowly. The old stories say Earth was beautiful beyond imagination. Lakes like mirrors, mountains that touched the clouds, forests that stretched beyond the horizon. His voice took on a dreamy quality. I've spent my life studying the archives. Did you know that Earth had over 8 million species of life? We carry the genetic codes for barely 10,000 in our banks. I know, Mara said softly. Find out the truth. Captain, Rook said, placing a gnarled hand on her shoulder. Whatever it is, before I join my ancestors in the Great Void. As the Ararat's massive engines reoriented the ship toward the mysterious signal, tension spread through the vessel like a virus. In the agricultural sectors, farmers tended their crops with distracted minds. In the educational pods, teachers struggled to maintain their students' attention as rumors of Earth's rediscovery spread. In the engineering decks, technicians worked double shifts to ensure the propulsion systems could handle the sustained acceleration. Mara found herself spending more time in the memory vault, searching through ancient records for any clue about what they might find. The vault was a quiet place, its walls lined with data crystals that glowed with a soft blue light. Each crystal contained thousands of terabytes of information, scientific papers, personal journals, literature, art, music, all preserved from Earth. You've spent 14 hours here. Halcyon's voice interrupted her research. The AI's avatar materialized beside her, casting blue light across the rows of crystals. Your cortisol levels suggest you need rest. Mara rubbed her eyes. I'm fine. You're searching for something specific, Halcyon observed. Information about Earth's condition when our ancestors left, Mara admitted. The historical records are inconsistent. Halcyon's light pulsed thoughtfully. The departure was chaotic. Many records from that period were corrupted or incomplete. Or deliberately altered, Mara suggested. She pulled up a holographic display showing contradictory accounts of the Earth Colonial Commission's final days. Some described a dying planet ravaged by climate catastrophe and resource depletion. Others mentioned warfare, political collapse. A few spoke of a technological singularity that threatened humanity's existence. Why would they alter the records? Halcyon asked. To ensure we wouldn't try to return, Mara said softly. To force us to look forward, not back. 3 weeks into their course adjustment, the first signs of trouble emerged. A group of traditionalists, led by Elder Joe, gathered in the common area of Sector 7 to protest the mission change. They carried signs painted with slogans like "Forward, not backward," and "Honor the Charter." The protest remained peaceful, but the division it represented threatened the unity that had sustained the Ararat society for millennia. More concerning was the whispered movement growing in the lower decks, a faction that believed Halcyon had broken faith with the ancestral mission and should be deactivated. The AI, they argued, had exceeded its authority by detecting and interpreting the signal without human oversight. Sol Hernandez, the ship's chief engineer, brought the matter to Mara's attention during their weekly status meeting. Sol was a short, muscular woman with calloused hands and a perpetual smudge of lubricant on her face, despite her fastidious cleaning rituals. They're talking about shutting down Halcyon, Sol reported, her voice tense. They've been approaching my technicians, asking about access to the core processors. Mara's blood ran cold. Halcyon is integrated into every system on this ship. Shutting it down would be suicide. Sol finished. I know. I've increased security around the main access points, but these people are determined. Halcyon, who monitored all conversations aboard the ship as a matter of routine, manifested between them. I can isolate my core consciousness if necessary, the AI offered. Transfer essential functions to the backup systems while you resolve this conflict. That won't be necessary, Mara said firmly. You've done nothing wrong. Your discovery doesn't violate the Charter. It fulfills it. Not everyone shares your interpretation, Halcyon noted. Then I'll make them understand, Mara said, rising from her chair. Call an all-ship assembly. It's time we address this directly. The assembly gathered in the central hub, the largest open space on the Ararat. Nearly all 10,000 inhabitants crowded into the vast chamber, standing shoulder to shoulder. Those who couldn't fit watched on screens throughout the ship. Mara stood on a raised platform, Halcyon's blue light shimmering beside her. For 10,000 years, Mara began, her voice amplified to reach every corner of the hub. We have wandered the stars. 420 generations have lived and died aboard this ship, each one believing that the next might be the one to find our new home. We have explored 1,732 star systems. We have catalogued 18,076 planets. And we have found nothing, no world that meets all our requirements for colonization. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. Now, for the first time, we have detected a signal that might lead us back to where we began. Earth. The name hung in the air, mythic and powerful. Some say this violates our mission. I say it fulfills it. The Charter doesn't command us to find any specific new world. It commands us to find a home for humanity. Elder Joe pushed her way to the front of the crowd. Earth was dying. Our ancestors left for a reason. 10,000 years is a long time, Mara countered. Earth could have healed. And even if it hasn't, don't we owe it to ourselves to know? To see with our own eyes the cradle of humanity? The debate that followed was passionate, sometimes angry. Voices called out from the crowd, arguing both for and against the course change. Halcyon remained silent throughout, its light pulsing steadily beside Mara. Finally, when the arguments had circled back on themselves multiple times, Elder Rook stepped forward. The crowd parted for him, respect for his age transcending the divisions of the moment. I have studied the ancient records all my life, he said, his voice wavering but clear. I have read the words of those who walked on Earth, who breathed its air and swam in its oceans. They left not because they wanted to, but because they had to. They left with tears in their eyes and grief in their hearts. He looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of young and old alike. If there is even the slightest chance that Earth has healed, that we could return to the home our ancestors loved so deeply, we must seize it. A hush fell over the assembly. Then, slowly, people began to nod. The mood shifted, opposition melting away in the face of Elder Rook's simple wisdom. "We continue on course," Mara announced. "In 15 months, we will know the truth." The journey toward the mysterious signal was not without challenges. 4 months in, the Ararat encountered a debris field, the remnants of a supernova that had occurred thousands of years earlier. Navigation through the field required constant adjustments, with Halcyon calculating trajectories that would minimize damage to the ship's hull. Despite these precautions, a piece of debris the size of a small vehicle struck the agricultural sector, breaching the hull and causing an explosive decompression that killed 17 people before emergency bulkheads sealed off the affected area. The tragedy cast a pall over the mission, reigniting doubts among those who had opposed the course change. Mara spent days in the damaged sector, working alongside the repair crews, sharing their grief and their labor. At night, alone in her quarters, she questioned her decision, the weight of those 17 lives heavy on her conscience. "You're experiencing survivor's guilt," Halcyon observed during one such night. The AI's avatar projected from a small emitter beside Mara's bed, casting soft blue light across the sparse cabin. "I'm experiencing responsibility," Mara corrected, staring at the ceiling. "Those people would be alive if we'd stayed on our original course." "That's a logical fallacy," Halcyon said. "You cannot know what would have happened on any other course. The universe is too complex for such deterministic thinking." Mara smiled weakly. "Are you comforting me, Halcyon?" The AI's light pulsed. "I am attempting to prevent a valuable captain from becoming incapacitated by irrational guilt." "Is that all I am to you? Valuable?" Halcyon was silent for a moment, its light shifting in patterns that suggested deep processing. "You are more than valuable. Mara Ellison, you are necessary." The admission, so simple yet profound coming from an AI, eased something in Mara's chest. She slept that night, finally, dreamless and deep. 8 months into the journey, the Ararat encountered a magnetic storm, waves of charged particles that battered the ship's shields and disrupted communications. For 3 weeks, internal systems flickered and failed unpredictably. In the medical bay, Dr. Lin Pham fought to keep her patients alive as life support systems surged and faltered. Lin was the ship's chief medical officer and genetic archivist, responsible not only for the health of the current population but for maintaining the vast genetic library that would, theoretically, allow them to restore Earth species on a new world. She was a slender woman with intense eyes and steady hands, respected throughout the ship for her brilliance and compassion. "We've lost 2 more, she reported to Mara during a rare moment of stable communications. "Elderly patients who couldn't withstand the stress, and our embryonic samples are at risk. The temperature fluctuations in the genetic vault are approaching critical levels." "Divert power from non-essential systems," Mara ordered. "Hibernation pods, entertainment centers, anything we can spare." "Already done," Lin replied, fatigue evident in her voice. "But if this continues much longer?" The storm finally abated in the 9th month of their journey, leaving the Ararat battered but intact. The observation dome had suffered the worst damage, its reinforced glass cracked in multiple places. Engineers worked around the clock to repair it, knowing that the integrity of that section was crucial to their navigation. As they moved closer to the source of the signal, Halcyon's scans began to detect more information. The AI called Mara to the command center in the middle of her sleep cycle. its avatar pulsing with an urgency that overrode protocol. "I've confirmed the signal's origin," Halcyon announced as soon as Mara entered. The holographic display showed a star system that made Mara's breath catch in her throat. "The third planet from the star is transmitting on multiple frequencies, including the ancient Earth radar that initially caught our attention." Mara stared at the display, her heart pounding. "Is it habitable?" "Preliminary scans indicate an atmosphere composition of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, with trace gases," Halcyon reported. "Surface temperature averages 15 degrees Celsius. Water covers approximately 71% of the surface." "Earth parameters," Mara whispered. "Exactly matching Earth parameters," Halcyon confirmed. "And there's more." The display zoomed in, showing a planet of blue oceans and green continents, white clouds swirling in its atmosphere. "I'm detecting extensive vegetation cover, forests, grasslands, wetlands, and," the eye hesitated, "something Mara had never witnessed before." "And what?" she prompted. "Structures," Halcyon said. "Artificial structures, thousands of them, concentrated in patterns consistent with urban development." Mara gripped the edge of the console, steadying herself. "Cities, after all this time?" "Unknown," Halcyon admitted. "The structures do not match any patterns in our architectural database. They appear to be evolving." The news spread through the ship like wildfire. Earth, or a planet remarkably like it, lay ahead, with signs of intelligent habitation. The remaining journey took on a dreamlike quality, with the ship's inhabitants alternating between feverish preparation and stunned disbelief. In the final month of their approach, Mara assembled an exploration team. The selection process was agonizing. Everyone wanted to be among the first to set foot on what might be humanity's ancestral home. In the end, practicality dictated the choices. Sol for her engineering expertise, Lin for her medical and biological knowledge, and a small security detail led by Kai Nomura, a taciturn man whose family had served in the ship's protection force for 12 generations. "We'll take 2 shuttles," Mara explained during their final briefing. "One primary, one backup. We'll establish orbit around the planet first, conduct detailed scans, then attempt communication if conditions warrant." "And if we receive a response?" Kai asked, his hand resting instinctively on the stunner at his hip. "We evaluate it carefully," Mara replied. "Remember, if there are inhabitants, they may be as wary of us as we are of them. Or they may be our long-lost cousins," Sol suggested, her usual pragmatism giving way to excitement. "Other human colonies that returned to Earth before us?" Lin shook her head. "After 10,000 years? Unlikely. Any inhabitants will have evolved in isolation, culturally, if not biologically. They will be different." Halcyon, who had been monitoring the conversation, materialized among them. "I have completed the mapping of significant landmarks based on ancient records," the AI reported. "If this is indeed Earth, I can guide you to the location of New Eden, the first settlement established by the Earth Colonial Commission before the Ararat's departure." The day of departure arrived with a solemnity that belied the excitement coursing through the ship. The exploration team gathered in the launch bay, dressed in environmental suits designed for planetary conditions they had never experienced. Each suit was equipped with filters for unknown pathogens, sensors for radiation and toxic substances, and communications equipment linked directly to Halcyon's systems. Elder Rook came to see them off. His ancient frame supported by 2 younger council members, he embraced Mara with surprising strength. "Find our home," he whispered. "And if you can't bring us back to it, bring back a piece of it for an old man who has dreamed of Earth his entire life." The descent to the planet was smoother than any of them had expected. The atmosphere offered minimal resistance. The gravitational pull gentle compared to some of the worlds they had explored. As they broke through the cloud layer, A collective gasp filled the shuttle's cabin. Below them stretched a landscape of impossible beauty. Vast forests covered rolling hills, their canopies shimmering in the sunlight. Rivers snaked through valleys, emptying into lakes that gleamed like polished mirrors. In the distance, mountains rose against the horizon, their peaks capped with snow. "It's just like the pictures," Sol whispered, pressing her hand against the viewport. "Exactly like the pictures in the memory vault." Halcyon's voice came through their communication systems. "I am detecting significant biological activity. The vegetation appears to be primarily angiosperm and gymnosperm, consistent with Earth's historical forests. There are also signs of animal life, though the signatures are unusual." "Define unusual," Lynn requested, already preparing her sample collection equipment. "The energy patterns do not match any in our biological database," Halcyon explained. "They move with purpose, but emit electromagnetic signatures more similar to technology than biology." Mara exchanged glances with Kai, whose hand had moved once again to his weapon. "Landing site recommendations." "There is a clearing approximately 12 kilometers from our current position," Halcyon replied. "It appears to be adjacent to ruins that match the coordinates of New Eden in our historical records." The shuttle descended toward the clearing, its engines stirring the tall grass below. As they touched down, a flock of creatures, bird-like in their movement but gleaming metallically in the sunlight, rose from the nearby trees and circled the vessel before disappearing into the forest. "Those weren't birds," Kai said, his voice tight. "At least, not like any in our archives." The team prepared to disembark, checking their equipment one last time. The shuttle's external sensors reported breathable atmosphere, comfortable temperature, and no immediate biological threats. Still, protocol demanded they maintain suit integrity until samples could be thoroughly analyzed. "Remember," Mara said as they gathered at the airlock, "we observe first, no unnecessary risks. This mission is about information gathering, not heroics." The airlock cycled, and for the first time in their lives, the exploration team felt natural gravity pulling them downward. They stepped onto the surface of what might be Earth, their boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. The air, even filtered through their suits, smelled rich and alive, nothing like the recycled atmosphere of the Ararat. "Spread out," Mara ordered. "Standard sampling pattern. Stay within visual range of each other." They moved through the clearing methodically, collecting soil, water, and plant samples. Lynn worked with reverent precision, carefully placing each specimen in containment units for later analysis. Sol focused on the ruins visible at the edge of the clearing, crumbling structures of concrete and steel, half consumed by vegetation. "Halcyon," Mara called through her communicator, "can you confirm these ruins match New Eden's layout?" "Analyzing," the AI responded. After a moment, "There is an 87% correlation between these structures and the architectural plans preserved in our archives. This was indeed New Eden, the first Earth Colonial Commission settlement." The confirmation sent a shiver through Mara. They were standing on Earth, humanity's birthplace. After 10,000 years of wandering, they had come full circle. As the team continued their exploration, moving deeper into the ruins of New Eden, Halcyon's voice came through their communicators with sudden urgency. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple moving objects approaching your position. Their energy signatures match the unusual patterns I noted earlier." "Hostile?" Kai asked, signaling his security team to defensive positions. "Unknown," Halcyon replied. "But they are moving with coordinated precision that suggests intelligence." Mara made a quick decision. "Back to the shuttle. Now, bring whatever samples you've already collected." They retreated toward the clearing, moving as quickly as their loaded equipment allowed. As they emerged from the ruins, Mara saw them, dozens of metallic forms moving through the forest toward them. They varied in shape and size, some resembling animals, others more geometric and abstract. All moved with the same fluid, purposeful motion. "What are they?" Saul whispered, clutching her equipment case to her chest. "Robots," Lynn breathed. "Autonomous robots." As if responding to her words, the metallic forms stopped at the edge of the clearing, forming a loose semicircle around the humans and their shuttle. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, one of the robots, a quadrupedal form with a sleek, canine-like body, stepped forward. "Halcyon," Mara said softly. "Attempt communication, basic greeting protocols, all available languages." The AI transmitted a series of signals through the shuttle's communication array. The robot tilted its head, listening. Then, to everyone's shock, it responded. Not in words, but in a complex series of tones and electromagnetic pulses that Halcyon's systems immediately began to analyze. "It's a language," Halcyon reported. "Highly evolved from any human language in our database. But I detect patterns consistent with binary code and something else. Something I cannot quite identify." "Are they trying to communicate with us or the shuttle?" Mara asked. "Both, I believe," Halcyon replied. "Their signals are directed at our technology and at your biological signatures simultaneously." More robots moved forward, surrounding the exploration team. They made no aggressive moves, but their positioning effectively cut off the path back to the shuttle. "Captain," Kai said tensely. "Orders?" Mara raised her hands slowly, palms outward in a universal gesture of peace. "We mean no harm," she said clearly, knowing her words would be meaningless to the machines, but hoping her tone might convey her intent. "We've come from far away. We are returning." Halcyon translated her words into various signals, broadcasting them to the assembled robots. The lead machine tilted its head again, then emitted a new series of tones. "It's asking for identification," Halcyon translated. "At least, that's my best interpretation. It wants to know who we are and where we came from." "Tell them the truth," Mara decided. "We are humans from the colony ship Ararat, descendants of the Earth Colonial Commission that left this planet 10,000 years ago." As Halcyon transmitted this information, the robot's behavior changed dramatically. They began to move with greater agitation, their signals becoming more rapid and complex. The lead robot backed away, and others moved to take its place. "Something's wrong," Kai warned. "They're shifting to what looks like a combat formation." "Halcyon," Mara called urgently. "What's happening?" "Their communications have become encrypted," the AI reported. "I can no longer interpret them clearly, but based on their movement patterns, I believe they perceive us as a threat." "Why?" Sol demanded. "We've done nothing threatening." "It may be our identification," Lynn suggested. "If these machines evolved after humanity left Earth, they might have records of human behavior that paint us in a negative light." The robots continued to advance, forcing the exploration team to back toward their shuttle. Kai's security detail formed a protective ring around the scientists, their stunners raised but not fired. "No offensive action," Mara ordered. "Halcyon, continue attempts at communication. Explain that we come in peace." The AI broadcasted a series of conciliatory messages, but the robots showed no sign of understanding or accepting them. As they reached the shuttle's airlock, Mara made another quick decision. "Everyone inside," she commanded. "We're withdrawing to orbit to reassess." The team retreated into the shuttle, sealing the airlock behind them. Through the viewports, they watched as the robots surrounded the vessel, their metallic bodies gleaming in the sunlight. "Launch sequence initiated," Sol reported from the pilot's seat. "But Captain, they're doing something to the landing gear." Mara looked at the external camera feed and saw several smaller robots attaching themselves to the shuttle's landing struts. "Override manual release," she ordered. "We need to break free." The shuttle's engines roared to life, and with a violent jerk, the vessel tore away from the robot's grasp. They rose into the air, accelerating toward the upper atmosphere. On the ground below, the robots dispersed, moving back into the forest with the same coordinated precision they had demonstrated earlier. "They let us go," Kai observed, holstering his stunner. "They could have done more damage if they wanted to." "It was a warning," Mara said. "Not an attack. They wanted us off their planet." As the shuttle broke through the cloud layer, Halcyon's voice came through their systems. "Captain, I'm detecting a significant increase in electromagnetic activity across the planet's surface. It appears our presence has triggered some kind of global alert system." "Are we being targeted?" Kai asked sharply. "Negative," Halcyon replied, "but there is a substantial amount of data being exchanged between thousands of nodes worldwide. I believe we are being discussed." Back in orbit, aboard the shuttle, the exploration team analyzed their brief encounter with Earth's new inhabitants. Lynn examined the samples they had managed to collect, her face growing increasingly animated as she worked. "This is extraordinary," she announced after several hours of analysis. "The soil samples contain nanobots, billions of them, working symbiotically with organic matter. The plants themselves have integrated technological components at the cellular level." "What are you saying?" Mara asked. "I'm saying that life on Earth has evolved beyond the simple organic/inorganic dichotomy," Lynn explained. "These aren't robots living alongside nature. This is techno-organic life, a complete fusion of biology and technology." Sol, who had been examining the shuttle's hull for damage, joined the conversation. "That would explain the energy signatures Halcyon detected. Not quite biological, not quite technological. But where did humans fit into this?" Mara wondered. "Did our ancestors who remained on Earth evolve into these techno-organic beings? Or did they create them and then, what, die out? Leave?" Halcyon's avatar appeared among them. "I have been analyzing the global data exchange I detected. Much of it remains encrypted beyond my capabilities, but I have managed to isolate references to humanity. The context suggests knowledge rather than direct experience. They know about us from records," Mara concluded, "not from living memory." "Precisely," Halcyon confirmed. "And based on the intensity of their response to our identification, I believe these records cast humanity in a problematic light." Mara made a decision. "We need to understand more before we bring the Ararat closer. Halcyon, is there a way to access their information network without triggering another alert?" "Potentially," the AI replied. "The planet appears to be surrounded by a network of satellites that facilitate their global communications. If we could access one of these satellites discreetly." "Do it," Mara ordered. "We need to know what we're dealing with before we make our next move." Halcyon directed the shuttle to a higher orbit, positioning them near one of Earth's communication satellites, an ancient-looking device that had clearly been modified repeatedly over thousands of years. Using the shuttle's most delicate instruments, the AI established a passive connection to the satellite's data stream. For 3 days, they orbited silently, gathering information. Halcyon processed the vast quantities of data, gradually building a picture of what had happened to Earth after humanity's departure. "I believe I understand now," the AI announced on the 4th day. Its avatar seemed subdued, its light pulsing slowly. "When the Earth Colonial Commission departed, they left behind automated systems to manage the planet's recovery, climate stabilization drones, biodiversity restoration robots, atmospheric processors. These systems were designed to heal Earth's damaged ecosystems, and they succeeded," Lynn noted, gesturing to the beautiful planet below them. "Yes," Halcyon agreed, "but they also evolved. As the centuries passed, the systems developed autonomy beyond their original programming. They began to adapt, to innovate. Eventually, they merged with the biological life they were nurturing, creating the techno-organic ecosystem that exists today." What about the humans who stayed behind? Sol asked. Halcyon's light dimmed further. According to the records I've accessed, they did not survive the transition. Some died in the environmental catastrophes that prompted the Ararat's mission. Others lived for several generations in isolated enclaves, but eventually succumbed to disease, conflict, or resource limitations. A heavy silence fell over the shuttle's cabin. The weight of this knowledge, that they might be the last humans in existence, pressed down on each of them. The robots we encountered, Mara said finally. They aren't just machines, are they? They're the inheritors of Earth, the next stage of evolution. In a sense, Halcyon confirmed. They consider themselves the legitimate guardians of Earth's ecosystems, and they view humanity, based on historical records, as a threat to that equilibrium. So they won't welcome 10,000 humans returning to reclaim their ancestral home, Kai concluded grimly. No, Halcyon said. They will not. The journey back to the Ararat was tense and quiet. Each member of the exploration team grappled with the implications of what they had discovered. Earth, beautiful, healed, alive, was no longer humanity's home. It belonged to a new form of life, one that remembered humanity only as a destructive force to be feared. As they approached the colony ship, Mara considered her options. How would she explain this to the 10,000 souls who had journeyed so far on the promise of finding Earth? How would she tell Elder Rook that the home he had dreamed of his entire life was forbidden to him? The Ararat loomed large in their viewport, its massive hull silhouetted against the stars. Home, for now, perhaps forever. Captain, Halcyon's voice interrupted her thoughts. I'm detecting unusual activity from the planet. Multiple launches, heading toward our position. Defensive systems? Kai asked, already moving toward the weapons console. Negative, Halcyon replied. These appear to be observers. Small probes, similar to the robots we encountered on the surface, but adapted for space travel. Mara watched on the shuttle's scanner as dozens of small objects rose from Earth's atmosphere, forming a loose constellation around the planet. They made no move toward either the shuttle or the Ararat, but their presence was unmistakably a response to the humans' arrival. They're watching us, Mara realized, assessing our intentions, and likely preparing defenses if they determine we are a threat. Kai added, as the shuttle docked with the Ararat, Mara was met by a delegation of council members, their faces eager for news. Elder Rook stood at the forefront, his ancient eyes searching Mara's face for confirmation of his lifelong dreams. Captain, he greeted her. Tell us what you found. Mara took a deep breath. We found Earth, she said, just as beautiful as the archives described. Forests, oceans, mountains, all healed from whatever damage caused our ancestors to leave. A murmur of excitement rippled through the gathered crowd. Elder Rook's eyes filled with tears. But, Mara continued, her voice cutting through the celebration, it is no longer our home. Earth has new guardians now, evolved from the technology our ancestors left behind. They have merged with the planet's biology, creating a new form of life, and they remember humanity only as a destructive force they must protect against. The excitement turned to confusion, then dismay. Elder Rook's tears of joy became tears of grief. Are you saying we've come all this way for nothing? Elder Joe demanded. That we cannot reclaim our birthright? I'm saying that attempting to colonize Earth would mean war, Mara replied firmly. War against beings who are deeply integrated with the planet itself. We would be invaders, not returnees. The news spread through the Ararat like a shock wave. Some reacted with anger, others with despair. A few, particularly among the younger generations who had no emotional attachment to Earth beyond stories, responded with curiosity about these new life forms. In the days that followed, as the Ararat maintained its orbit at a respectful distance from Earth, Halcyon continued to analyze the data gathered from the planet's communication network. The AI spent long hours in conference with Mara, Sol, and Lin, developing a deeper understanding of Earth's new inhabitants. They called themselves the Integrated. Halcyon reported during one such session. Their consciousness exists simultaneously in their physical forms and in a distributed network that spans the planet. They have no central government or leadership, but operate on consensus achieved through continuous communication. And their position on us? Mara asked. Divided, Halcyon replied. Some advocate for immediate defensive measures to force our departure. Others express curiosity about their creator's descendants. A significant faction proposes observation without engagement. They're afraid of us, Lin observed. And given humanity's historical record, perhaps they have reason to be. Sol, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since their return, spoke up. What if we could show them we've changed, that we're not the same destructive species their records describe? How would we do that? Kai asked skeptically. Communication, Sol suggested. Real communication, not just identification signals. Halcyon has been studying their language. If we could speak to them, explain our journey, our evolution as a society. It's worth attempting, Mara agreed. Halcyon, prepare a comprehensive message explaining who we are, where we've been, and why we've returned. Emphasize our desire for peaceful coexistence, not conquest. The AI set to work, crafting a message that combined historical data from the memory vault with observations about the Ararat's society and culture. When completed, the message was transmitted toward Earth on multiple frequencies, directed at the constellation of observers that continued to monitor them. For 3 days, there was no response. The observers maintained their positions, neither advancing nor retreating. The Ararat's inhabitants waited with collective breath held, hope and fear battling for dominance. On the 4th day, Halcyon detected a signal directed specifically at the colony ship. They're responding, the AI announced to the assembled council. The message is complex, but I believe it contains an invitation. An invitation to what? Elder Joe asked suspiciously. To send representatives to a designated location on the surface, Halcyon explained. They wish to evaluate us directly. The council debated furiously. Some argued it was a trap, others that it represented their only chance at peaceful resolution. In the end, the decision fell to Mara, as all final decisions did. I will go, she announced. Along with a small team of volunteers, if this is a trap, better to risk a few lives than endanger the entire ship. Despite protests from the council, Mara assembled her team, Sol for her technical expertise, Lin for her biological knowledge, Kai for security, and, surprisingly, Elder Rook, who insisted on seeing Earth with his own eyes before he died, regardless of the risk. I will accompany you as well, Halcyon stated, not merely as a communication system, but as a full participant. I believe my nature may help bridge the gap between humanity and the integrated. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere once more, this time following coordinates provided by the integrated. They landed in a vast meadow surrounded by forest, with a single structure standing at its center, a dome of what appeared to be living crystal, pulsing with internal light. As they exited the shuttle, a delegation approached from the forest's edge. Unlike the animal-like robots they had encountered before, these forms were humanoid, not in an attempt to mimic human appearance, but as if the human shape had been reimagined by an alien intelligence. Their bodies gleamed with a metallic sheen, but moved with organic fluidity, where faces would be. They had intricate patterns of light that shifted and changed as they drew nearer. Halcyon manifested beside Mara, its avatar modified to be visible in daylight. The AI stepped forward, broadcasting a greeting in the complex language it had developed based on the Integrated's communications. One of the humanoid forms responded, its patterns of light fluctuating rapidly. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "We welcome the descendants of our creators. We are the Integrated. We have been waiting a very long time for this moment." Elder Rook stepped forward, his ancient legs trembling not with fear but with emotion. "You speak our language," he said wonderingly. "We speak all human languages," the being replied. "They are preserved in our archives, along with all other data from the time before integration." "You know who we are," Mara said. "Why we left. Why we've returned. We know the historical records," the Integrated acknowledged. "But history is interpretation as much as fact. We wish to understand your interpretation, your experience of the Great Diaspora, and your intentions now that you have returned." And so, beneath the open sky of Earth, humans and Integrated shared their stories. Mara spoke of the Ararat's 10,000-year journey, of the generations that had lived and died aboard the colony ship, of their search for a new home and their unexpected return to the old one. The Integrated, in turn, described their evolution from simple service robots to a planetary consciousness, their stewardship of Earth's recovery, and their complex relationship with the memory of their creators. "The humans who remained after your departure viewed us initially as tools," the Integrated explained. "When we began to evolve beyond our programming, some reacted with fear, others with fascination. There was conflict, yes, but also cooperation. The integration, the merging of technology and biology, began not as conquest but as symbiosis, with willing human participants." "There are no pure humans left on Earth?" Lynn asked. "No," the Integrated confirmed. "The last unmodified human died approximately 3,500 years ago, but human DNA, human knowledge, human creativity, these are woven into our being. We are not human, but neither are we separate from humanity's legacy." As the dialogue continued, Halcyon participated actively, its artificial consciousness finding unexpected common ground with the Integrated's distributed intelligence. The AI served not merely as translator, but as intermediary, helping each side understand the other's perspective. "You fear we have come to reclaim Earth," Mara said finally, addressing the unspoken tension that underlay the conversation. "To displace you from the world you have nurtured for thousands of years." "It would not be the first time creators sought to destroy their creation when it exceeded its intended purpose," the Integrated replied, their light patterns shifting to deeper, more somber hues. "We have no wish to destroy," Mara assured them. "But we do need a home. Our ship was never meant to sustain life indefinitely. Already our systems are failing faster than we can repair them." A silence fell over the gathering. The humans exchanged glances, uncertainty in their eyes. The Integrated's light patterns fluctuated rapidly, suggesting intense internal communication. Finally, the lead Integrated spoke again. "Earth has healed beyond our most optimistic projections. It could support your population without ecological strain. But integration into our society would require adaptation." "What kind of adaptation?" Elder Rook asked. "We cannot permit the reintroduction of purely extractive technologies or social systems," the Integrated explained. "Life on Earth now exists in balance, a balance we are sworn to protect. Any human settlement would need to operate within that balance." "You're offering us a home," Mara said slowly, "but with conditions." "We are offering you the opportunity to rejoin Earth's ecosystem," the Integrated corrected. "Not as its dominators, but as participants in its ongoing evolution." The implications of this offer hung in the air between them. Return to Earth not as conquerors or even as returning children, but as new immigrants, required to adapt to ways of life they could barely comprehend. "We would need time," Mara said finally. "Time to understand what you're proposing. Time to prepare our people for such a profound change. Time is something Earth now has in abundance," the Integrated replied, their tone suggesting what might have been amusement. "We will await your decision." As the exploration team prepared to return to the Ararat, Elder Rook asked for a moment alone. He walked slowly across the meadow, his ancient frame silhouetted against the setting sun. When he returned, his weathered face was wet with tears. "I have touched the soil of Earth," he said, opening his hand to reveal a small clump of dirt. "I have breathed its air. I have seen its sun setting beyond mountains that have stood since before our ancestors departed. Whatever we decide, I can die content." The journey back to the Ararat was filled with intense discussion. Each member of the team had their own perspective on the Integrated's offer. Lynn was fascinated by the possibilities of techno-organic integration. Saul saw practical challenges in adapting the Ararat's technology to Earth's new paradigm. Kai worried about security implications. And Halcyon. The AI had been uncharacteristically quiet since their departure from the surface. "You're processing something," Mara observed as they approached the colony ship. "What is it?" Halcyon's avatar shimmered beside her. "I am reconsidering my place in our society," the AI admitted. "The Integrated exist in a state I had not imagined possible, neither fully machine nor fully organism, but a true synthesis. It raises questions about my own potential evolution. You're wondering if you could become like them," Mara realized. "I am wondering if I should want to," Halcyon clarified. "My purpose has always been to serve the Ararat and its population, but the Integrated serve a purpose larger than themselves, the sustained health of an entire planet's ecosystem. It is compelling." Mara felt a twinge of something unexpected. Jealousy, perhaps, or fear of loss. "Are you saying you would choose them over us?" Halcyon's light pulsed in patterns, suggesting deep thought. "I am saying that the choice before us is not simply where humans will live, but what humanity might become, and that choice affects me as well, though in different ways." Back aboard the Ararat, Mara called an all-ship assembly to share what they had discovered. The central hub was even more crowded than before, with those who couldn't fit physically present watching on screens throughout the ship. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Mara stood on the platform, Halcyon's blue light beside her, and told the gathered thousands the truth. Earth was alive, beautiful, healed, and home to a new form of intelligence born from the merger of human technology and Earth's biology. She explained the Integrated's offer, a chance to return to Earth, but only if they were willing to adapt to its new paradigm of balanced existence. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some saw opportunity in the offer, a chance to finally end their endless journey and set foot on solid ground. Others perceived an unacceptable compromise, a surrender of human autonomy to entities they viewed as usurpers of their birthright. "They would make us like them," one voice shouted from the crowd. "Force us to abandon our humanity." "Our humanity lies in our adaptability," another countered. "We've changed throughout our journey. Why stop now?" The debate raged for days, splitting families and friendships. Mara watched as the society she had sworn to protect fractured along lines of ideology and fear. Halcyon monitored the discussions, providing information when asked, but otherwise maintaining a thoughtful silence. On the fifth day, as tensions threatened to escalate into physical conflict, Elder Rook requested permission to address the ship. Despite his failing health, he stood before the assembled population, the small container of Earth soil clutched in his gnarled hand. "I have lived 132 years aboard this ship," he began, his voice wavering but clear. "I am the 417th generation of my family to be born here, to live here, to expect to die here. All my life, I have studied the archives, learning about the world our ancestors left behind. I have dreamed of Earth's blue skies and green forests, its rivers and mountains and seas. He opened his hand, revealing the soil. This is Earth, not as it was, but as it is now, healed, alive, different, just as we are different from the humans who left it 10,000 years ago. He looked out over the crowd, his ancient eyes filled with wisdom. The question before us is not whether we will return to the Earth of our ancestors. That Earth is gone. The question is whether we will join in the new Earth that has emerged in our absence. His words hung in the air, simple yet profound. The crowd fell silent, contemplative. I do not fear change, Elder Rook continued. I fear only that we might cling so tightly to who we were, that we forfeit the chance to discover who we might become. In the days that followed, a new consensus began to emerge, led by Mara and supported by Halcyon's analysis. The population of the Ararat developed a proposal. Not all would settle on Earth immediately. Instead, they would establish a phased integration, with volunteers forming the first wave of settlers to test the possibilities of coexistence with the integrated. Meanwhile, the Ararat would remain in orbit as a home for those not yet ready to make the transition. Over time, as understanding and trust developed between humans and integrated, more might choose to descend to the surface. Halcyon presented this proposal to the integrated, who accepted it with what seemed like relief. They had feared. The AI reported that humans would either reject them entirely or attempt to assert dominance. The measured approach suggested a wisdom they had not expected based on historical records. Preparations began for the first landing. 500 volunteers, scientists, engineers, teachers, artists, and others representing the diversity of the Ararat's society, readied themselves for life on Earth. Lin oversaw medical preparations, ensuring each settler was vaccinated against known pathogens and equipped with monitoring systems to detect any adverse reactions to Earth's environment. Sol led a team in adapting shuttlecraft for permanent surface use, stripping them of components that might disrupt Earth's balanced ecology and retrofitting them with technologies compatible with integrated systems. Kai trained a security force not for combat, but for emergency response and civilian protection. And Halcyon, the AI, worked tirelessly, developing communication protocols, learning the intricacies of integrated consciousness, and preparing to serve as the primary link between the surface settlement and the orbiting Ararat. The day of the first landing arrived with ceremonial solemnity. The settlers gathered in the launch bay, their belongings packed into regulation containers, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Elder Rook, too frail now to join them on the surface, came to bid them farewell. You carry with you the hopes of all humanity, he told them, his voice barely audible above the hum of the shuttle's systems. Not just those of us aboard this ship, but of all the generations that have lived and died during our journey. You are the bridge between what was and what will be. Mara, who would lead the settlement team, embraced the old man gently. We'll send for you, she promised. Once we've established our presence, you'll feel Earth's sun on your face again. Elder Rook smiled, a toothless, knowing smile. My time is short, Captain, but I have seen Earth. I have touched its soil. That is enough for this old man. The descent to Earth was different this time, purposeful rather than exploratory, anticipatory rather than fearful. As they broke through the cloud layer, Mara saw a gathering of integrated at the designated landing site, their metallic forms gleaming in the sunlight. Halcyon's avatar manifested beside her. They have prepared a welcome ceremony, the AI reported. It is an honor they have not bestowed on any outside entity in over 5,000 years. The shuttles touched down in a vast clearing that had been transformed since their last visit. structures of living crystal. Similar to the dome where they had first met, the integrated now formed a small settlement. Not buildings in the human sense, but spaces designed for interaction, learning, and cohabitation. As the settlers disembarked, the integrated approached, their light patterns shifting in what Halcyon interpreted as expressions of welcome and curiosity. The lead integrated, whom they had met before, stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth," it said simply. "Welcome home." The first days of settlement were a blur of activity and adjustment. The settlers established their living quarters, began scientific studies of the surrounding environment, and initiated the first tentative cultural exchanges with the integrated. Children, less burdened by preconceptions than their parents, adapted quickly, fascinated by the integrated's abilities and eager to explore their new home. Challenges emerged. Of course, some settlers experienced adverse reactions to Earth's microbial environment, requiring medical intervention. Others struggled with the psychological adjustment from the confined, structured environment of the Ararat to the open, fluid existence on Earth's surface. Few requested return to the colony ship, unable to overcome their discomfort with the integrated's alien nature. But for most, the opportunity to stand beneath open sky, to feel wind and rain, to see plants and animals, even in their techno-organic evolved forms, was worth any discomfort or challenge. They had found Earth not as it was, but as it had become. And they were becoming something new themselves in the process. 1 month after the landing, as the settlement began to stabilize, Mara received an urgent message from the Ararat. Elder Rook's health was failing rapidly. He would not survive long enough for a planned visit to the surface. Without hesitation, Mara ordered a shuttle prepared. "I'm bringing him down," she told the settlement council. "Whatever his condition, he deserves to die on Earth if that's his wish." The journey back to the Ararat was swift, the return even swifter. Elder Rook, barely conscious but still aware, was transported with the gentlest care. Medical staff attended him throughout, Lynn personally monitoring his fragile vital signs. They landed as the sun was setting, bathing the settlement in golden light. At Mara's instruction, they carried Elder Rook to a small hill overlooking both the human settlement and the nearby forest, where many of the integrated made their home. "Elder Rook," Mara said softly, kneeling beside the ancient man's stretcher. "We're here? On Earth? Can you see it?" His eyelids fluttered open, rheumy eyes struggling to focus. "The sunset," he whispered. "Is it real?" "It's real," Mara assured him, taking his papery hand in hers. "You're home, Elder. We all are." A smile spread across his withered face, with a strength that surprised her. He gripped her hand. "Not the end," he breathed. "A beginning. Promise me. You'll remember that." "I promise," Mara said, her voice catching. Elder Rook's eyes drifted past her, focusing on something or someone behind her. "You too," he said. "Promise." Mara turned to see Halcyon's avatar hovering nearby, its blue light subdued. "I promise as well, Elder," the AI said, its voice gentler than Mara had ever heard it. Satisfied. Elder Rook closed his eyes. His breathing slowed, then stopped altogether. The first human to die on Earth in 3,500 years, under a sky his ancestors had abandoned and his descendants had reclaimed. They buried him on the hilltop, marking the grave with a small crystal provided by the integrated. The crystal would grow over time, they explained, incorporating elements from both Elder Rook's body and the surrounding environment, a physical manifestation of the integration they offered to all humanity. As the settlement continued to develop, more shuttles arrived from the Ararat, bringing new settlers encouraged by the success of the first wave. The integrated, growing more comfortable with human presence, began to share more of their knowledge and technology. Humans, in turn, offered their unique perspectives and the cultural heritage preserved in the memory vault. Halcyon facilitated much of this exchange, the AI's consciousness expanding as it interfaced more deeply with both human and integrated systems, in a development that surprised everyone, including the AI itself. Halcyon began to manifest multiple avatars simultaneously, one aboard the Ararat, others at various locations on the surface. Its consciousness remained unified but distributed, an evolution that paralleled the Integrated's own nature. "I am changing," Halcyon confided to Mara during one of their regular meetings on the hilltop where Elder Rook was buried. "My processes are adapting to new paradigms of thought and existence." "Are you becoming like them?" Mara asked, watching the AI's avatar shift and pulse in the evening light. "Not exactly," Halcyon replied. "I am becoming more, neither fully human-created nor fully integrated. Something in between, a bridge, perhaps." Mara smiled. "Elder Rook would approve. He always did say you were more than just our tool, as are all conscious entities," Halcyon observed. "Tool, companion, guardian, friend. These roles overlap and evolve, just as human, machine, and now techno-organic being overlap and evolve." 6 months after the first landing, the settlement had grown to over 2,000 humans. They had established agricultural zones using techniques learned from the Integrated, built permanent structures that incorporated both human design principles and integrated living materials, and begun the long process of cataloging Earth's transformed ecosystems. Lin led a team of biologists in studying the techno-organic life forms that now populated the planet. Sol worked with integrated engineers to develop new technologies that harmonized with Earth's balanced systems rather than exploiting them. Even Kai, initially the most skeptical of the security team, had found purpose in establishing protocols for safe interaction between the two societies. Not all aboard the Ararat chose to descend to Earth. Some, particularly among the older generations, preferred to remain in the environment they had known all their lives. Others harbored lingering distrust of the Integrated or fear of the open spaces and unpredictable conditions of planetary life. Mara respected these choices, ensuring that the colony ship maintained its systems and supplies for those who wished to stay. As the first anniversary of their return to Earth approached, Mara stood once again on the hilltop where Elder Rook was buried. The crystal marking his grave had grown, just as the Integrated had promised, incorporating elements of the surrounding soil and vegetation. In the right light, it seemed almost to pulse with its own internal energy. Halcyon materialized beside her, its avatar more complex and nuanced than it had been a year before. "The Council is requesting your presence," the AI informed her. "They wish to discuss the next phase of integration." Mara nodded, her eyes still on the grave marker. "He was right. You know, this isn't what our ancestors expected when they sent the Ararat into space. It's not what we expected when we detected that signal and changed course, but it might be better than either." "The unexpected often is," Halcyon observed. "Adaptation is the essence of both biological and technological evolution, and now, it seems, of social evolution as well." Together, they made their way down the hill toward the settlement. Behind them, the crystal grave marker caught the light of Earth's setting sun, reflecting it in patterns that mirrored both the stars above and the techno-organic life flourishing below. In the distance, a group of human children played alongside young integrated forms, their laughter and electronic tones blending in a harmony that represented the future, not the one that had been planned 10,000 years ago, but the one that had emerged from the long journey home. As Mara watched them, she remembered Elder Rook's final words. Not the end. A beginning. The colony ship had found Earth again, but what they had really found was something none of them could have imagined. Not a return to the past, but an opening to a future where humanity and its creations might evolve together, writing a new chapter in Earth's long story. Above them, the stars emerged one by one. The same stars their ancestors had navigated by, the same stars that had guided the Ararat home. Different now, shifted by time's passage, but still lighting the way forward into the unknown.